Giannis Antetekoumpo, he's now a superstar, but on draft night, Giannis wasn't always viewed in that manner. You see, in the 2013 draft, Giannis was taken with the 15th pick by, of course, the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, if you don't know, for a player of that caliber, that's extremely low, and it made me wonder who was every player that was drafted above the Greek Freak.
With the first pick in the 2013 NBA Draft, the Cleveland Cavaliers select Anthony Bennett.
So a lot of you are familiar with the name Anthony Bennett for being the biggest bust in NBA history. But in college, this guy was tough. He averaged 16 points per game as a true freshman. In college, he played well, but nobody, and I mean nobody, viewed him as the most talented prospect in the draft class. Well, nobody except the Cleveland Cavaliers. When he stepped on the court, he surprised everyone, and I'm talking about in a bad way. It took him 5 games to record his first NBA field goal, and man, that has to be a skill. Like, I've seen guys scoring the NBA off cuts and just being at the right place at the right time. He would only average 4 points in his rookie season, and man, that's I think another thing is that the expectations got to him. He was an underrated prospect. He wasn't really a hyped up prospect until Cleveland drafted him number 1. After his rookie season, Cleveland, they saw enough. They wanted no parts of Anthony Bennett, so they traded him. They traded him to the Timberwolves. Only 57 games into the season, they completely cut bait with him. They released him. From there, Anthony Bennett would play in Toronto, Brooklyn, Houston, and he would spend some time in the G League. If you're looking for Anthony Bennett today, you can find him playing professional basketball overseas.
With the second pick in the 2013 NBA Draft, the Orlando Magic select Victor Oladipo.
Victor Oladipo played college ball at Indiana University, and he was a freak athlete. He averaged 14 points a game, and he would then be selected by the Orlando Magic. His career actually got off to a fairly quick start. In his first 4 years in the league, he was averaging about 16 points per game. He played well in Orlando, but his career would really take off after being traded to the Pacers, and I'm not going to do too much talking. Just sit back, kick back, and relax.
Cousins has left. He has 2 fouls. That's why he's out, as Oladipo went right around Cunningham. Reeves finds Turner, pounds him.
So the point is, Victor Oladipo, at least for that 2017 season, he was really good. He made it to the All-Star game. He averaged 23 points per game, and he went toe-to-toe against LeBron in the playoffs. But since this season, Victor hasn't been the same player, and that's mainly because of injuries. I think he's still capable of being really good, but he just hasn't been able to stay healthy, which is just unfortunate. This past season, Victor would play for the Miami Heat, and in the games that he was active for, he was actually playing solid, but once again, Victor would suffer another season-ending injury.
With the third pick in the 2013 NBA Draft, the Washington Wizards select Otto Porter Jr.
As a sophomore in college, Otto averaged 16 points per game, and he was awarded with the Big East Player of the Year. Otto Porter Jr. was known as the most complete prospect in the draft class. He was extremely versatile, and I think that's what made him so intriguing. He was then drafted 3rd by the Wizards, and this selection had a lot to do with fit. He was joining a solid Washington team. They were competitive, and what more can you ask for coming into the league? Otto Porter would last 5 seasons in Washington before being traded to the Chicago Bulls. After 1 season in Chicago, he was again traded, this time to the Orlando Magic. Otto Porter Jr., he's far from being a star in the league, but he's a respectable role player. He's a great 3-and-D player. He shoots the ball well, he defends, and for his career, he averages about 10 points per game, so he is giving you solid production.
With the 4th pick, the Charlotte Bobcats select Cody Zeller.
Cody would attend Indiana University, and he would average about 16 points per game, and he would grab 7 rebounds to go along with that. Even though he put up the numbers, the thing that made him a solidified top 5 draft pick was his basketball IQ. He didn't exactly live up to the expectations and standards for a player selected that high, but he is still solid. You know, again, he's a role player. He is very injury prone, but when he is active and healthy, he averages about 9 points per game. So Cody is one of the players on this list that still remains on the same team that drafted him.
With the 5th pick, the Phoenix Suns select Alex Len.
As a sophomore at Maryland, he would come back to school and he would improve in just about every statistical category. He doubled his scoring output and he really impressed scouts with his soft touch, footwork, and defensive instincts. Entering the league, he would be selected to a Phoenix team that was rebuilding, and his career didn't take off like most expected it to. He played 4 seasons in Phoenix, averaging about 7 points and 7 rebounds. After signing with Atlanta in 2018, he would put together his best season. He was averaging 11 points and 6 rebounds, which is the most he ever averaged throughout a season. So something was clicking for him in Atlanta, but unfortunately, his time in Atlanta wouldn't last long. Since then, he's played in Sacramento, Toronto, and this past season, he played with the Washington Wizards.
With the 6th pick, the New Orleans Pelicans select Nerlens Noel.
Leaving college, he was projected to be the #1 pick in the 2013 draft, but he just could not stay healthy. You know, late in the season, he would suffer a torn ACL, which was probably the worst thing that could happen to him. No team wants to draft a player that's recovering from an injury, especially not an injury that's severe to the point where it requires surgeries. So that's why he would end up falling in the draft. Alright, so when he got to Philly, you know, it was the best way to describe the situation was literally like a roller coaster ride. You know, his first 2 years were respectable, but I think the biggest problem is that he was just defensive minded. Like, he had no offensive skill set, and that's a problem with the way the NBA was shifting, because everybody has to be a threat on the offensive end. You know, Philly went out and they basically drafted his replacement in back-to-back years. First they drafted Joel Embiid, then they drafted Jahlil Okafor. So as you can imagine, that meant that he would be getting less play time, and he wasn't too happy about that.
I'm not an 8-minute player, so I don't know what that's about. So I don't care where. I don't really care. I need to be on the court playing basketball. I think I'm too good to be playing 8 minutes. Like, no, that's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy.
In 2017, Philly, they had enough of him, so they would trade him to the Dallas Mavericks, and since he's played with the OKC Thunder and most recently the New York Knicks, he plays about 20 minutes per game and he averages about 5 points, 7 rebounds, and about 2 blocks.
With the 7th pick, the Sacramento Kings select Ben McLemore.
Ben McLemore was a baller at the University of Kansas. He was explosive, athletic, and he could score the ball at an efficient rate. Leaving Kansas, he was regarded as the most talented prospect in the draft class, even drawing comparisons to Ray Allen. Come draft night, he was selected by Sacramento, and he didn't exactly live up to the hype. He spent the first half of his career suffering on a Sacramento team that just wasn't very good. In 2019, he was released by Sacramento, but would later sign a deal with the Houston Rockets, where he would prove that he can still shoot the ball at a high level. This past season, he played for the Los Angeles Lakers, and he was averaging about 8 points per game, and he shot about 37% from 3.
With the 8th pick in the 2013 NBA Draft, the Detroit Pistons select Kentavious Caldwell-Pope.
KCP would attend the University of Georgia, and he was a marksman from 3, averaging about 19 points as a sophomore. Later that year, KCP was drafted by the Detroit Pistons. He would spend 4 seasons with the Pistons before signing with the Lakers as a free agent. KCP has had both ups and downs, but overall, he's a somewhat solid 3-and-D player. The only problem is consistency.
With the 9th pick, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Trey Burke.
Trey Burke was a stud at the University of Michigan. As a sophomore, he put up about 19 points, 7 assists, along with the trip to the national championship game. Entering the league, we all thought Trey had star potential, and so did the Utah Jazz. They traded away 2 first-round draft picks to select a guy that they believe would be a transcendent talent. I think we found out fairly quickly that he wouldn't be in Utah for long. Trey Burke would last 3 years in Utah before being traded to the Washington Wizards for a second-round draft pick, which is crazy because they traded 2 first-rounders to select him. Since the trade, he's played for numerous teams, operating as a spark plug off the bench. This past season, he played for the Dallas Mavericks and he averaged about 7 points per game.
With the 10th pick in the 2013 NBA Draft, the Portland Trail Blazers select C.J. McCollum from Lehigh.
C.J. McCollum attended a small school, Lehigh University. He was a high-scoring combo guard that averaged 21 points throughout his collegiate career. Following his senior season, he was drafted to Portland and he's turned himself into a respectable name. In the last 6 years, he's averaged at least 20 points per game. He's a respectable talent, he's just not Giannis.
With the 11th pick, the Philadelphia 76ers select Michael Carter-Williams from...
Michael Carter-Williams played college ball at the University of Syracuse and his potential was on full display. In his improved sophomore season, he averaged about 12 points and 7 assists. Now the thing that made him an intriguing prospect was his size. He was a 6'6" point guard. He was a great playmaker and he just had great feel for the game that you don't see often from a collegiate athlete. And that's why the Philadelphia 76ers drafted him. So in MCW's rookie season, he took off. He came out of nowhere, averaging 17 points per game, and he was awarded with the Rookie of the Year trophy. The sad part is, the organization, they never believed in him. They never viewed him as a franchise talent, so the next season, he was traded to Milwaukee to play alongside Giannis. From there, his career went downhill. He suffered multiple injuries, he lost confidence, and ultimately he failed to adapt to the modern style of basketball, meaning he's never been the best shooter. As for today, he's currently playing for the Orlando Magic and he's been a solid role player.
With the 12th pick, the Oklahoma City Thunder select Steven Adams.
Steven Adams attended the University of Pittsburgh. He didn't exactly put up the most appealing numbers, but you could definitely see the potential. When he got to OKC, he was a bit of a project. However, he would eventually develop into a reliable center, and it definitely helped that his point guard was Mr. Triple-Double himself. Aquaman is athletic, he's a great rebounder, and he's extremely physical. In the 2017 season, Steven would put together his best outing. He would average 13 points and 9 rebounds, which would land him a massive 4-year, $100 million contract. As for today, he plays for the New Orleans Pelicans, and this past season he averaged about 8 points and 9 rebounds.
With the 13th pick, the Dallas Mavericks select Kelly Olynyk.
Kelly Olynyk attended Gonzaga University. In his junior season, on average, he put up about 18 points and 7 rebounds. On top of that, his maturity was on full display. Entering the league, Kelly wasn't thought of as this prospect that had high upside or even star potential. He was more so viewed as a prospect that can come in and give you quality minutes at the center position. That's pretty much what he did when he got to Boston. Since entering the league, Kelly has been consistent. You know exactly what you're going to get from him on a nightly basis. He's been in the league for 8 years now, and he's played for multiple teams, including the Celtics, Heat, and recently the Rockets. This past season, he did average 19 points per game, but for his career, he averages about 10 points along with 5 rebounds.
With the 14th pick in the 2013 NBA Draft, the Utah Jazz select Shabazz Muhammad.
Shabazz Muhammad attended UCLA. He was referred to as a pure scorer. As a freshman, he averaged 18 points per game, which shows that at least on the collegiate level, he could put the ball through the basket. On draft night, he was traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves, and in his rookie season, he did not play immediately. But by his second year, which was the 2014 season, he began to play significant minutes. He would score about 14 points per game, which was the most he ever averaged throughout his his entire career. If you were to glance at his numbers, you'd probably think he was a respectable player, but that was not exactly the case. If Shabazz Muhammad wasn't scoring the basketball, he served you little value. He wasn't the best defender, he wasn't the best rebounder, and he definitely wasn't the best passer. He was one of the guys I've seen that can score 20 and have little impact on winning. Shabazz Muhammad last played professional basketball in 2019. He played in the Chinese Basketball League.
With the 15th pick in the 2013 NBA Draft, the Milwaukee Bucks select Giannis Antetekoumpo